Hey everybody, welcome back to the continuing series of My Life with Kenny Rogers. It's actually not about my life, it's the life of these folks that are on this side of the camera, who you probably never saw on stage, but without these folks, the show would not go on. So the young lady is Debbie Cross, and the young man is Garth Shaw. And tell us what you did during all your years working with Kenny.
It's easier to say what I didn't do.
You know what? That's right. That's right.
All aspects. I started with Kenny, Kenny's booking agent, answering the phone. And that lasted for about 2 days. And I'm like, I got to do more than answer the phone.
On 16th Avenue?
No, in Hendersonville on Volunteer Drive. In 1981. I started with Kenny in 1981.
Oh,
working
okay.
for the booking agent and the promoter.
Okay.
CK Spurlock.
CK, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And stayed there for 13 years. And then I left and went to work for Alan Jackson for 5 years. And then I came back and worked for Kenny personally for 19 years. Yeah. Till he retired.
An additional 19 years. You know
32
what?
years total.
That is amazing.
So that over half of my life was with Kenny Rogers.
Yep.
Great.
Yep.
Life.
Yep. And folks, if you hear music in the background, it's because we are at the Franklin Theater, as they say down south, the theater. And there is the Kenny Rogers Band show, because even though Kenny isn't with us, the music still lives on. And the gentleman to Deborah's left, your right, is Mr. Garth Shaw. Garth, tell us what you allegedly did as well.
Well, I was Kenny's first solo career road manager. And then the guy that she worked with the most was Gene Roy. And he was the second road manager. And in Kenny's entire solo career, he only had 2. And so I was with Kenny for the first 7 years. And then I had a year and a half or so off, and then I came back with Sawyer Brown opening for Kenny. But basically, in those early days, Kenny sang, the band played, and I did everything else on the road.
Yeah, and people don't realize the amount of work that goes into putting a show on. Long before the trucks get there, long before the equipment's on stage, long before the lights are lit, and long before Keith would say, "Ladies and gentlemen, Kenny Rogers." Deborah, in your case, I mean, you handled logistics as far as hotels, as far as what the band would be fed, what Kenny would be fed, what time, you know, how much distance between city to city.
Right.
Talk about some of those things that the general public doesn't get to hear about a lot.
Well, the first thing you have to do is check with your venues to see if they're available. Mm-hmm. And then you find out when they're available, and you try to do a routing tour, which goes from city to city to city. We played 6 days on, 6 days off for 2 weeks. So we played for 2 weeks, and then we were home for 2 weeks, out for 2 weeks, all for years.
Yeah, how many years you think that was?
Oh gosh, I don't know if he did that before me or not.
Yeah, 2 weeks on and 2 weeks off.
We only had Mondays off.
Mondays off in the middle city.
Mm-hmm.
Mondays off. But the amazing thing is the geographic logistics, because you couldn't go from Miami to Philadelphia to Atlanta, although sometimes it seems as though you did.
It had to be logistically for the buses to make.
Our limit was 400 miles a night.
Right, that was
our limit.
About the time frame that it took for the bus. You figure, Ledford always told me you could average 50 miles an hour.
Right, that's what you did.
With that. Plus, this was a year-round tour. It wasn't just the Jimmy Buffett summer tour. So,
no, it was 12 months out of the year, for years.
And during those Christmas tour years, they hardly took any days off. And plus, so much of that time was spent in the Northeast.
Right.
That weather was always an issue, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Garth, can you ever remember having to cancel a show because you couldn't get from city A to city B?
No, but we did cancel a show one time in what's east of here, Tennessee?
Oh, Knoxville. Knoxville, Chattanooga.
Johnson City?
Yeah,
City,
way
up there.
City, Bristol.
Doing one of the last shows of the year one time, and Kenny had a really bad sore throat. And he called me over on the stage in the round, and he said, you know, get CK. And so I called him on the two-way radio, and he came down. And so what happened was Kenny told the whole audience, he said, I have a really bad sore throat. I don't think I can finish the show, but I'll do the best I can. And I want to wish all you guys a Merry Christmas, and I'm refunding all your money.
That was a Happy New Year right there. That was a Happy New Year. So Deb, a lot of people, when they think of entertainers, they think of prima donna pains when it comes to riders on contracts as far as food being served backstage. You guys were the farthest from pains. I mean, I've read those.
We were very simple. We wanted
Yep.
meat, potatoes, vegetables, bread, and dessert,
Yep.
and sweet tea.
Yeah. And there were times when you were, a few years when you were spoiled with Midge, right?
Oh yeah, Midge did all our Florida runs.
Yep, yep. And she did all the cooking, running to the...
Right, she did all of the Florida
Hi,
days.
Midge.
Yeah. You know, Midge is always a great commenter here. But I mean, she would run to the food store every day.
Oh, she was great.
And
her whole crew
come
was
back,
great.
cook it all up, and you know, whatever. But it wasn't that Monday had to be green vegetables and Tuesday had to be carrots and
No.
Wednesday had to be
Mm-mm.
corn.
It just we weren't that. Nobody was that picky.
You know, from that end of it. But did you ever yourself get a chance to hit the road for a period of time? In spurts, or did you regularly go out?
Just when I really, basically when I just wanted to go.
Oh.
Unless it was the Christmas tour.
Okay.
Because I did all the advancing, so by the time a show got there, I was done with the show. I was
Yep.
sick of it.
Yep.
It's like, I don't want to go there. I've already talked to everybody and done everything. I don't want to go there.
Yeah. But Garth, on show night, if there was an issue, there were probably times when you had to call Debbie and say, "Hey, Deb, you know, what was this supposed to
Well,
be?"
he didn't really
We didn't
because
overlap.
we didn't work together that much. When I he was stopping his part when I started. I started in '81.
Okay, so there wasn't much of
We only had
Much
a
of an
few
overlap.
months that we worked together.
Yeah, yeah. People think that the entertainment business is just fun and games, but there's so much behind the scenes that's not really fun and games. Talk about some of the things that you had to do, Deborah, as part of your job that the public would never think that would be
An issue.
an issue, or
Well, none of it was really hard to me.
why?
Because it was an easy job. I knew how to do it. I knew what to do. I loved doing what I did.
You
So
had the
it
best
wasn't.
band, and she had the best crew.
Yeah, it wasn't hard because if you got a good group of people doing their job,
Yeah,
it makes your job a lot
yeah.
easier.
And you said those 32 years, so little turnover. Isn't it amazing what Kenny was able to accomplish?
Well, because he was a great person, a great boss. Family was first.
Yep.
If you had a family, we all were family. We weren't really just a touring group. We were all family. Everybody cared about each other's spouses, children, parents. Very loving atmosphere. Very unusual from most artists.
And the ironic part about it is here we are, what, in 81 you started and it's 24 now. What's that, 24, 43 years later, you know, there's some of you all gathering today to, you know, some of the older, not the older, but the former band members getting
Right.
together in Nashville to see the show. But it just seems amazing, Garth. I mean, you've seen other acts out there where there's a new road manager every 6 months because they were either, you know, not sufficient or the talent was, you couldn't please them,
Right.
right?
Kenny was very old school. He cared about everybody, and all you had to do was do your job.
Do your job.
Just do your job.
Do your
so
job.
it's not asking a lot.
Yeah. Talk about the hotels. How could you pick hotels and
We tried to stay at a hotel that was nearest the venue,
Yep.
so the guys could walk, if possible. We needed hotels that had bus parking.
bus parking,
Because we
right?
had buses. That was a big issue. Like if we played in New York City, we usually stayed in New Jersey
Because the bus.
because
Yep.
the buses could. Yeah, but we always made sure we had bus parking at any hotel. If you didn't have bus parking, you weren't even thought about. It was not an option.
And sometimes there was the Christmas shows. There was 4 and 5 buses, right? And of course the trucks were a little bit different because they're
Yeah, we didn't have a lot of production like they do now. We had a Kenny's bus, a band bus, a crew bus, and then if we had extra people at Christmas, we had another bus.
The Christmas
so
with the
4
kids.
Buses.
Yep.
Trucks, we maybe had 3 at the most.
Yep. Well, today it's
Because
insane
you know why?
today.
Because we were a real artist and we could perform without a lot of stuff.
Yep.
And people wanted to see the artist and not the production.
Yeah. And now there's some country artists that were out there a few years ago with 20 trucks for
Right.
an arena show. It's all, Garth, I'm sure you'd agree, it was all those the video walls that they had to build.
Yeah.
Right,
We had our own
exactly.
version of that. It was a slightly smaller scale, but it
Right.
was still 18, 20,000 seat arenas, venues.
Yep. Yep. So, Garth, once the show began, could you go back and sleep in the bus for an hour?
No.
What did you do then?
I'd go in the dressing room and start packing
Getting ready for the next
the loadout.
for the next show. The next show. And a lot of people don't realize, Deb, that the traveling from city to city was usually done between midnight and 6 a.m.
Right.
So, which even adds to the, the wintertime issue, as well as the, you're at night. You got deer running across the road. You got animals coming running across the road. You got crazy drivers across the road. Garth, is there any particular show that comes to mind when you say, "Man, I'm so grateful that we made it from one place to another to be able to set up the next night"?
Well, I can't quite remember. I think it was New Mexico, but there was actually a show where we were rolling overnight, and it was dark and it was skidding, and one of the buses actually went off the road and turned over upside down. But nobody was injured, and we were able to get everybody into the next city, and still the show wasn't canceled.
Yeah. But Deb, you had an additional responsibility because for many years when you were working, Kenny had the plane. So he'd be flying, the band would be flying, the crew would be on a bus, the
Staff. We actually had a staff.
Staff.
Santa Cruz bus when I was
Yep. So which means you had airport.
You see, I didn't do.
You didn't have to
when I
do
was
that.
doing production during that time, I didn't do any of the travel during the time he had the planes. I did mainly production, made all the stagehand calls, union, non-union, when meals were, what menus were, and told the guys what we were doing. So I did a lot of production for shows before the shows were even booked. That was just part of one of the things I learned during my time.
You learn that there's a lot more to it than.
But when we did lasers, we had lasers at one point, and when we would do outdoor shows, I would have to contact the FAA and
because
give
of
them the logistics of
airplanes?
where the lasers were going to be because of the airplanes.
Wow.
Oh, okay. That was I think during Lady
That was
and a
back in
couple
the 80s.
during Lady and a couple other songs. It wasn't on every song, I don't
No,
think.
it was not on every song.
But it added to the
Opening
show.
and closing.
Those green.
Yeah, they would encircle them with the green. Yeah,
Green
but we
and
did a
blue
lot
and-
of laser stuff on outdoor shows in the 80s.
Yep. Any crazy stories? I mean, limit it to.
No, not really
To
any
what?
crazy stories. I mean, honestly.
I'll tell you a story about Midge.
Go ahead.
Midge
Talk
Truby,
louder. Yeah.
She did catered all our food, and the problem was a lot of times the band would go home with camp, and so we would have tickets like movie theater tickets that we would hand out, so that when you got in line for dinner, she would know you were supposed to be there, and she wasn't just feeding arbitrary people that weren't supposed
Okay,
to
yeah.
get in the
Yeah.
dinner line. And so it would frustrate the band when they got there because they didn't know where I was yet, and they didn't have their tickets, and they wanted to eat. So I invented 2 things that solved that problem, and one was the glow-in-the-dark backstage pass.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
that if you were backstage and it was pitch dark and a glowing pass was coming at you, the only instruction you had was leave it alone. And then I invented the all-access food pass, and there was one year when Kenny had the thumbs up photograph that he's autographed that year, and I had the artist take it back into his art studio and get rid of the thumbs up and turn it over and put a hamburger in Kenny's hands. Put it on the back of the glow-in-the-dark pass so the band could flip it over, and it said access to all dishes. That solved Nedge's problem.
That solved the problem there. Would you do it all over, Deborah?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. Wouldn't change a thing.
Yep. Yep. It just, when you look back and you see the relationships that were built. How about opening acts? Did you have any relationship with the opening acts?
They were not called opening acts.
They were what?
Per
Support?
Kenny Rogers. They were called support talent.
Support talent.
Nobody was an opening act.
Okay.
Because he
Describe
wanted-
why that is an
Because-
important distinction.
He wanted everybody to, because when he was getting in the business,
Yep.
he didn't always get great quality of anything because he was considered an opening act. And he thought, if I ever make it, nobody's going to be treated the way I was treated. So you were not an opening act, you were support talent, and he treated you as such. Everything he had was available to you.
Did you ever hear back from those people and say, wow, we felt like part of the group?
Well, I wasn't on the road that much, so that would be what the crew would have heard of. I dealt with the tour managers of the opening acts. I didn't really have to deal with the talent. I dealt with the support talents, tour manager, road manager, to make sure that we had everything they needed to make them comfortable and happy.
Cool. Great. Hey, we want to thank you so much. You can hear, I'm sure that it's bleeding through here, the
sound check.
The sound check, which is interesting because after a while Kenny didn't do sound check. I mean, the band went out.
Didn't, just the band.
But isn't it fascinating? Have you seen this show yet?
I have not.
Oh, you will.
Really?
Yep.
Have you?
Yeah.
Yep.
No, I haven't.
You will absolutely love this show. It will take you back.
Oh, I'm sure.
Take you back to, you'll hear a song and then you'll say, wait a minute, when that song was a hit, we were
Such and
doing
such.
this, or we were doing the Superdome of course
New
now
Orleans.
now all the buildings have different, it's the same
I know.
building, they have different names.
I know, yeah.
They have different names, but we want to thank you so much for spending time with us here
Well, thank you, and welcome to Nashville.
as we get ready to
Thanks, John.
see another show.
That's right.
So everybody, Debbie Cross, Garth Shaw, My Life with Kenny Rogers continues. Stay with us.